views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals participating in the show. All persons described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions along with adult language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
On the night of August 21st, 1955, in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, a family experiences what they describe as an alien encounter. What exactly did they see? Or was it just misidentification? Misidentification. May talk good someday. You're listening to the Mysterious Bruce podcast, and tonight we bring you the case of the Hopkinsville Goblins.
Welcome to a deep, dark, dank, moist, swamp-assy basement somewhere in the bowels of Georgia.
I'm moving to Maine or something.
Well, they had a heat wave up there, and then they were about to die. You know, they don't have air conditioning up there. We would die. If we got up there and the humidity rose and it was 90 degrees, we'd be like, why were we here?
You know, when I was in Maine, they said that they go to school all the way till damn near July because they miss so many days for winter weather.
Yeah.
So
I know our mutual co-worker Hotchkiss, they called off school. God, I want to say it was his second year back up in New York, upstate New York, because of a heat wave. It was going to be like 93 or 94. I'm like, hell, I'll take 93 down here any day.
God forbid. Yeah, but it's not the heat.
It's the humidities.
It's the humidities. So I would take 93 degrees in Maine over 85 degrees down here.
Yeah, we had gone to visit my wife's family in Indiana. It's about an hour northwest of Indianapolis. And that, you know, it's a constant breeze out there, but during the summer, if that breeze ever stops, oh dear Lord, it's awful. And the dog strikes again, ladies and gents. The dog strikes again. Well, we do not have any new patrons to speak of.
Bro. Bro. You literally... He's literally never played with this toy in months.
And then he finds it.
But...
he's going to go around you.
Oh, yeah.
There he goes.
Oh, yeah.
There he goes.
Oh, yeah. Well, there he goes.
There he goes, boys and girls. I said, don't look, Ethel. It was too late. Well,
and here's the thing: is he will literally obsess over this toy. He will not stop.
Oh, I've got one that's the same way, man. He's got, if a dog could have ADD, mine's got it. Hyper focused, autistic. I swear mine's autistic, ADD, 3-legged.
It's just crazy is the fact that, you know, he's literally not any toy that will make noise. He finds during the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Of course he does. It's like a child. That's what I tell people. I have a nonverbal, autistic, 3-legged dog.
Hell, I can't remember what I was going to say.
About the heat?
Oh, yeah. Like back when I was competing in jiu-jitsu, I went to Vegas 7 pounds over my weight class. And I'm like, oh, I'll just cut the weight in Vegas. No, you will not. My kidneys were like, bruh, we about to peace out.
That is hilarious.
And like, they found me like just cradled in a corner of the hotel room. Like, I just can't do this, man. That's back when I was trying to cut the super heavy, which is 222.0 pounds. And that's why I do ultra heavy.
Well, let's get into it, ladies and gents. Our story this evening takes place.
I don't understand how we haven't covered this case yet. It's been 5 years on this damn podcast. And this is one of the most famous cases there is.
Yeah. And what's funny is I talked to a friend of the podcast, Heater, and he said that he worked in Western Kentucky for a little bit, and people always would, you know, he said jokingly talk about goblins, and then he knew about the Hopkinsville story, but then Hellier came out and he's like, maybe they wasn't joking.
Hellier is such a weird show.
Especially that first season, man. Whew. It's crazy. Well,
yeah, it don't make sense.
We are talking about Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and more specifically, the small little town called Kelly, Kentucky. And Kelly is about 15 or 20 minutes north of Hopkinsville. It's right off of Interstate 169. And Hopkinsville is probably an hour from the land between the lakes and probably 45 minutes north of Clarksville, Tennessee.
Huh. Good old Clarksville.
Good old Clarksville. So it was a warm evening on August 21st, 1955 at the Sutton family farmhouse in Kelly, Kentucky. And the farm belonged to one Mrs. Glennie Langford, who...
I don't mean to interrupt, but did you know that University of Tennessee, signed the #1 recruit in the whole nation who's about to go into his senior season in high school?
Quarterback, running back, athlete?
Yeah, quarterback.
Oh, well, there you go.
So we're going to be all right.
You better off
anyway,
without old gold digger there.
Nico, blah, 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 blah.
Strong arm ya. Nico strong arm ya.
That's right.
So, Mrs.
Sorry,
that's
sorry,
all right.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Mrs. Glennie had inherited the old farm from her second husband, Oscar Langford, when he passed away. And Glennie had multiple children with her previous husband and with Oscar. Now, remember, we are 1955. We were right in the baby boom generation. So with Oscar, she had 3 children, Lonnie, age 12, Charlton, age 10, and Mary, age 7. With her first husband, Tillman Sutton, she had 2 children, Elmer, who went by Lucky. He was 25 at the time, and John Charlie, or just JC, if you will, who was 21. Now, JC's wife, Eileen, was 27, and her brother, O.P. Baker, was 30. Now, Lucky's wife was named Vera, and she was 29. Now, all of these people were present at the farmhouse on the evening of August 21st, 1955. Now, Lucky and Vera both worked as traveling carnival workers and had invited 2 of their co-workers, Billy Ray Taylor, 21, and his wife, June Taylor, 18, to join them as they visited Miss Glennie.
Have I ever told you about this kid that when I was teaching ISS way back in the day? This kid, I mean, he was a frequent flyer. He was in there every day for one period, if not got assigned to it. Well, all of a sudden, I didn't see him anymore. and he had a little brother that was a grade younger than him.
He done run off with the carnies.
Yeah. I said, man, what happened to your brother? He said, he change his ways? He find religion? And he goes, oh, no, man. He ran off with the fair.
So
I said, what is he doing in the fair? And he said, well, he was weighing people, but he was too mean. So now.
Weighing people?
Yeah, like, guess your weight.
Oh, I got you.
And I said, he was too mean. So now they got him running the balloon, whatever, where you throw the darts at the balloon.
Yeah.
Half inflated, and the darts are dull.
Yeah, it's stacked house rules. So
it's a con.
It is a con. Staying on the carny, we had in the great city that I live, had one of those parking lot fairs show up at the Brave Stadium, single A. And it stayed for a couple of weeks. And so we were.
Is it single A?
Yeah.
I thought it was triple A.
No, that's Gwinnett.
Ah, yeah, you're right.
So we had gone, I think we were going to Chattanooga for something. Anyway, so there's like Carney Mobile transfer truck hauling, like, the bumper car ride or whatever it is. And so we look over, and it's been a while since we've been to a fair or carnival. Dude, the guy driving that truck, 100%, look stereotypical carny. Woo! He's probably 25. Had a hard life.
We'll get back to the case eventually, I'm sure, but let me tell you, I went to a Weird Al show, and just picture in your mind's eye what you think a Weird Al fan looks like, and I promise you, that's what Weird Al fans look like.
Oh, man. All right, so back at it. So in all, on the night or evening of August 21st, there were 11 people gathered at Mama Glenny's farmhouse. Now, after everyone had finished dinner that night, the women were cleaning in the kitchen, washing dishes, while the men played cards and told stories. Children played games around the house, and after a couple of hours, old Billy Ray Taylor became bored and restless. So he goes into the kitchen to get something to drink. And just so we get this out of the way now, and I make it crystal clear, Billy Ray was not going in there to get him a drink of liquor or a sudsy beer. Glenny was a teetotaler. And if you don't know what a teetotaler is, she lived at the foot of the cross, and she forbade any alcohol in her house or on her property. She was a faithful religious woman.
Not even on the property? You can't even hang out in the back?
And so she prohibited any alcohol from being in her presence. So the farmhouse did not have running water, and they did have a well. Now, it's not the old bucket on a rope well either, before you make some stereotypical Western Kentucky jokes in 1955. So around 7 that evening, Billy Ray, like I said, restless, thirsty, bored, he grabs the water pail bucket from the kitchen, tells the ladies and everybody that he'll be back. He's going to get some water. So this well actually was like a pump handle. So you had to pump the water out as a manual pump. So he's over there pumping the water and happens to look up at the night sky. As he does this, he notices something very odd. Now, this is according to Billy Ray. Quote, a streak of light flashed across the sky, end quote. Now, this streak of light grabbed his attention, and it was moving steadily towards the farmhouse. And as the light got closer, Billy Ray could make out that it was a large disc-shaped object with a trail of bright lights behind it. He said this odd disc shape was also accompanied by a loud hissing sound. He would state later on that as the object flew over the farmhouse, it appeared just
disappeared just behind the nearby tree line. Now, this tree line that he's speaking of is less than a quarter of a mile away from the farmhouse. Now, Billy Ray claimed he could still see the illumination coming from behind the trees, so it was backlit, even though he couldn't actually see the UFO. Convinced that he had just witnessed an actual UFO, he hightails it back to the farmhouse, and he's going to tell everybody what he saw. So after returning to the farmhouse, Billy Ray shouts that he had just seen a flying saucer soaring over the house, and it disappeared into the tree line past the well. Everyone looked at Billy Ray as if he had two heads. Breaking the uncomfortable silence was Lucky, and he asked if Billy Ray had gone, quote, plumb crazy, end quote. Billy Ray was quick to tell him and everyone else staring at him that he was not crazy, and, quote, I know what I saw, and I'm sure it is one of those flying saucers they've been talking about, end quote. There was a heated discussion that ensued, and accusations was thrown in Billy Ray's direction, saying that he just got spooked by a meteor or a shooting star. Now, keep that in mind because that'll come back later. Frustrated, Billy Ray continued to exclaim that he was most certain that he did not see a shooting star or a meteor, that he had witnessed a UFO. Eventually, everyone calms down and peace is restored inside the farmhouse. However, that peace was short-lived. Roughly an hour after Billy Ray had told everyone what he saw, the quiet Kentucky evening was shattered with the sound of two dogs loudly barking outside that startled everyone. Now, everybody inside the farmhouse assumed that the dogs had caught wind of a deer or maybe a possum or a raccoon had walked across the yard. It was not until they noticed that the barking was non-stop and it was getting more intense that they decided that they were going to see what the dogs were upset with. So Lucky decided he would go out and investigate the situation. Billy Ray followed him, and the two men headed outside. As soon as they stepped out onto the front porch, both dogs cowered in fear, tucking their tails, and darted underneath the porch. Confused by the dog's behavior, Billy Ray and Lucky exchanged confused glances and turned their attention towards the directions the dogs had been barking in. In the dim moonlight under a cluster of trees, they made out a silhouette of a humanoid-like figure. Fascinated, the two men stared at this mysterious being, trying to figure out exactly what it was. Whatever it was, it had now taken notice of Billy Ray and Lucky. Unnerved by the situation, both men quickly stepped back into the farmhouse, shut the door, and locked it behind them.
Heck yeah, I would have too.
Yeah. And if you know, did you ever listen to Louis Gossard? If y'all have never listened to the great Southern comic Louis Gossard, you should. And look up the funeral home fan incident, because I can just see this transpiring.
What are you talking about?
I just told you, if you was paying attention, Louis Gossard and the funeral home fan.
Well, tell us.
Well, the Reader's Digest version is, remember back in the day, they brought the body home. It sat in the parlor at the house. And the story is that his uncle had basically something happened and they had to bungee this old man's legs flat. And by doing so, he kept trying to raise up, so they weighted him down. So they have this sitting with the dead, basically, session, and everybody gets up to go to bed, and it just leaves Lewis and his I think it's his grandfather or his father one, sitting there. And about that time, the counterweights shift, and old Unc sits up in that casket. And Louis Gossard said, and my father or whatever cast down his funeral home fan and said, well, Uncle so-and-so, if you're going to sit up, I'm going to bed. It's much better.
That good of a story.
It's much better. It's been years, man. And when I say years, I mean 30-something years. I'll have to find the thing, and then we'll play it for everybody next week.
You know what's crazy? I don't even know who that is.
Oh, good Lord. He wrote a column for the AJC all the time.
I don't fucking read the AJC.
Obviously you don't, or you'd have known who I was talking about.
Atlanta Journal-Constitution, for those that don't know.
All right, back at it. Having noticed the looks on their faces of everyone in the farmhouse, and after explaining what they had just seen, J.C. Sutton grabbed a 20-gauge shotgun and reaches over and grabs a 12-gauge double-barrel shotgun, hands it to Lucky. Billy Ray grabs himself a .22 caliber rifle, and the three men head back out on the front porch to see what's going on. And sure enough, they see this mysterious creature, but this time it was not just a silhouette. What they saw was a creature that stood between 3 and 4 feet tall. It had a large head with prominent pointed ears that appeared as if they would be sharp if you touched them.
I'll tell you this much. If I'm going out to fight goblins, I want the 12 gauge.
Give Doc the 12 gauge. They'll be less likely to act up. It also had eerily glowing eyes that was yellowish in color, and they were situated on the sides of its head. Now, the creature had long, slender arms with hands that were elongated with webbed fingers that kind of curled inward, resembling a claw-like shape. This creature's short legs appeared to serve no purpose because those who saw the creatures claimed that they didn't walk, they just hovered above the ground. And if this wasn't odd enough, the witnesses stated that the creature's body emitted a faint glow or a luminescence. Whatever this thing was, it was steadily advancing towards the farmhouse. With a palpable tension in the air, this creature lifted one of its elongated fingers above its head. Billy Ray and Lucky thinks that this might be a sign of a threat, and they raise their weapons ready to defend the farmhouse and the people inside. At the same time, Glennie comes out onto the porch and tells the men not to shoot the creature. And Glennie would later state that she stopped them because she did not feel in her soul and in the pit of her stomach as if the creatures meant harm to her or her family. Ignoring Glennie, Billy Ray and Lucky stepped off the porch into the front yard, and when the creature got to within approximately 20 feet, and that's way too fucking close if you ask me, they opened fire.
Dude, there's no way that I'm going out there.
I'm not letting him close the gap to 20 feet. 20 feet.
Yeah, that's not happening. That's going to be a no for me, dog.
That's just past 6 yards. That 12 gauge is going to reach out there and touch somebody about 25, 30.
I would definitely shot.
Yes, and they did. And it appeared to have no effect on said creature. The men stated that they knew they had hit the creature because they heard this odd and distinctive sound of a metallic ricochet. Now, the shot seemed to cause an unusual response from the creature. Upon being struck, it performed a maneuver that resembled a backflip and then gracefully landed in an upright position, all the while still hovering above the ground.
Somehow a backflipping alien is much scarier than just a normal alien. I couldn't imagine.
This is the oddest thing. Now, the creature then turned towards the woods and retreated back the way it had come. Once the creature had disappeared from their sight, Billy Ray and Lucky carefully inspected the area around the house for approximately 5 minutes. Convinced that the creature had left, they re-entered the farmhouse. Billy Ray, Lucky, and J.C. were all troubled by the ineffectiveness of the shots against whatever the creature was. Uneasily, everyone gathered in the living room except for the younger children who Glennie had instructed to hide under their beds when the shooting began. So at this point, the family had a discussion about what had just transpired and came up with a plan in case the creatures returned. To everyone's shock, one of the creatures appeared outside one of the windows of the farmhouse. JC raises his 20 gauge and shoots through the window. And again, JC knew he hit the creature due to that weird metallic sound coming from it. And this creature also performed this sort of backflip maneuver and landed in the upright position just like the other one did. Billy Ray seized the opportunity and also took a shot at the same creature. More determined and armed again, Billy Ray and Lucky head back out onto the porch to check the perimeter. Billy Ray stayed on the porch as Lucky is stepping down into the front yard. Just as Billy Ray was about to step down and follow Lucky into the yard, the adults inside witnessed something terrifying. Described as a long clawed hand reaching down from the overhang of the roof, it appeared as if something was trying to grab Billy Ray's head. The group inside screamed in horror, with Eileen rushing out onto the porch, quickly pulling Billy Ray back just before this creature could grab him. Lucky takes a couple of steps further into the yard where he's able to get a clear view of the creature on the roof. Without hesitation, he raises his shotgun and fires, again striking the creature. But this time, he struck the creature with such force that it sent it over the top of the roof. Once Lucky was sure that the creature was off the roof, he told Billy Ray that the coast was clear, and Billy Ray joined him in the front yard. Again, "You're on your own, Lucky. They tried to grab my head. I am not going out in the yard with you."
Nah, hell no. Hell to the no. To the no, no.
Hell to the no, no, no. Hell no, no. To the no, no. Hell to the no, no.
I mean, seriously.
Oh, me. So anyway, unlike Coach and I, Billy Ray is a trooper, and he heads out to back Lucky up. Now, after a minute or so, Billy Ray notices another creature that is sitting on a limb in a nearby tree. Instinctively, Billy Ray and Lucky fired at the creature, knocking it off the limb. As it descended, Billy Ray and Lucky noticed something rather odd. When the creature fell, it sort of defied the laws of gravity. What they described was the creature seemed to kind of float down to the ground instead of just falling. After this short floating motion, the creature appeared to stand back up on its feet and basically back in its floating position. This creature also hurriedly floated back into the woods. Now, it was stated that roughly 20 minutes after the one that they shot out of the tree, a sense of dread came over Billy Ray, Lucky, and all of the other adults in the farmhouse because it was becoming very clear that their firearms were not doing anything to harm these creatures. As if on cue, another creature appeared on the roof of the house, and once again the men shot it off. This time, the combined power from the men allegedly knocked the creature nearly 40 feet back off the roof, and just like the one in the tree, it slowly floated down into a perched position on top of a fence that was around part of the house. The men then shoot it off the fence, and it too kind of defied this floating situation, landing basically upright and hurriedly floated back into the woods. After that, things calmed down for a while, and at that point, both men felt comfortable enough to go back inside the farmhouse. The women, however, were all huddled together, and the children were still under the beds. The sound of footsteps was heard along the roof of the house. Glennie happened to look out a window towards the front yard and noticed another creature slowly making its way towards the house. Billy Way wasted no time.
Billy Way?
Billy Way.
Billy Way?
And he opens the front door and fires. Now, Billy Ray's got a 22. He shoots through the screen door, again sending this creature flying backwards. Just as the other ones had done, it kind of floated down into this upright position and hurriedly floated back into the woods. As the night went on, the creatures continued to advance towards the house and made multiple appearances. When they would be spotted, the men would fire at them. As this was happening, Glennie still tried to argue with the men that the creatures didn't seem to be there to hurt them. However, with the children present at the home, the men weren't going to take any chances without knowing what these things were capable of.
I don't blame them.
Yeah, I don't either. Now,
I mean, you got chitlins in the house.
a lot of people in the farmhouse estimated that there may have been anywhere from 10 to 15 different creatures that came towards the farmhouse. Others thought it could just be 2 or 3 making multiple appearances. While it's seeming as if the siege was never going to end, fear started to set in, and the idea that this encounter could possibly take a more ominous turn was becoming a real possibility. At this point in the story, the quote-unquote battle had been going on for nearly 3 hours, and the men's gunfire had damaged the walls, windows, and screens of the farmhouse. Around 11 p.m., the group decided that they needed professional help. So Billy Ray and Lucky's vehicles were both parked outside. So everybody runs to the cars and makes a hurried retreat from the farmhouse. Now, they make it to the cars without encountering another creature. And the 2 men drive like crazy towards Hopkinsville. Now, Hopkinsville and from the farmhouse was only 8 miles away, and they headed directly to the police station and rushed inside. They tell the first officer that they see what had gone on that night. Billy Ray recounted witnessing the disc landing in the woods earlier in the evening and described the lengthy battle they had endured for the last 3 or 4 hours against these unknown creatures. Billy Ray informed the officer that he had gone through 4 entire boxes of 22 bullets, while both JC and Lucky explained that they had used several boxes of shotgun shells. The men explained how the creatures appeared impervious to the shots fired and expressed their fear that the situation could have gotten deadly. They emphasized the need for assistance of law enforcement. Billy Ray, Lucky, JC, and everyone else were your typical woodsy rural people. They were not one to usually call law enforcement for situations. Now, this was a family that was a very solve-your-own-problem type of family. The officers at the station were shocked by the story they were hearing because it seemed incredibly insane and unbelievable. However, the group in front of them all shared the same story and experience in this intense state of hysteria. All of this convinced the officers that even if they hadn't seen aliens, they must have witnessed something that deeply disturbed them. So the chief of police of Hopkinsville, a man named Russell Greenwell, and a deputy for Christian County, George Batts, took all the information and statements from the witnesses. After taking these statements, they determined that they needed to go to the farmhouse to further investigate the claims. Greenwell and Batts tell an officer at the station to put out an all call for any additional units to meet them at the farmhouse. Basically, they were asking for anyone in the area that could assist to meet them there. These additional units were instructed to bring along extra rifles or shotguns and extra ammunition. When the call went out, word quickly spread about the events that transpired that evening. In response to this all call, a squad of 17 officers headed to the property in Kelly. The Suttons and the rest of the people that had made their way to the police station returned back to the farmhouse shortly after midnight, followed by the officers. Somehow, the news media had been tipped off, and they too showed up at the farmhouse. And now it is estimated that nearly 30 people were present on the property at this time. The police began their investigation shortly after arriving around midnight, and their initial question was, could it be possible that these people were drunk? The police were unable to find any evidence to support that claim, and additionally, the officers who were present at the Hopkinsville police station when the group entered denied seeing any clear indication that any of them had been or were intoxicated. Given the description that these creatures appeared to hover above the ground as they moved around, the police were unable to find any footprints that could have possibly been left behind. As the police examined the property, they discovered empty shells from the firearms used by Lucky and Billy Ray. However, according to the evidence report for that night, only the front door screen had clear evidence of bullet holes. The investigators also made an interesting discovery in the front yard. Near the fence where one of the creatures had landed, the investigators found this glowing green stain on the ground. However, none of the investigators considered this stain as evidence, and they did not collect a sample for further examination.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You've got people reporting aliens, and you find a green liquid, and you don't take a sample.
That's glowing.
Yeah, that just boy, man.
It is 1955, so let's keep that in mind.
It reminds me of a comedian when he's talking about how hard it would have been to be a cop, like in the 20s. He was like, man, he's like, officer, there's a whole lot of blood. And he's like, gross. But back to my hunch.
Yeah. Back to this gut feeling I have.
Yeah, back to my hunch.
So it was nearly 2 a.m. when the police and press began to leave the property. Law enforcement stated that they would resume their investigation the following day, taking advantage of the daylight. With everyone gone from the farmhouse, everyone that was there that evening decided to try and get some rest. Most everyone was still on edge from the events of the night, and as a result, most everybody, including Miss Glennie, found it impossible to sleep. At around 3:30 a.m., Glennie became convinced that she heard something walking on the roof of the house. Discreetly, she alerted everyone else to what she thought she had heard. At that moment, Glennie looked outside her bedroom window and noticed the eerie luminescent glow of yet another creature attempting to peer inside the home. When Glennie noticed this, she called out to the rest of the family, and Lucky, who had not yet fallen asleep and was keeping watch, quickly grabbed his shotgun, and despite another plea from Glennie not to shoot, because she still felt that they are just being curious and opposed no harm to anyone, Lucky disregarded and shot. And he actually shoots through a window and knocks the creature backwards, just as the other ones they had struck did. The family finds themselves engaged in yet another battle with the creatures, and this one lasts until about 5:15 in the morning, so another almost 2 hours. So at that point, the family said the creatures seemed to have abruptly disappeared without any trace. Sometime after that, a group of policemen arrived at the house to conduct another investigation. Upon their arrival, the family informed the police that Billy Ray and Lucky had left for Evansville, Indiana that morning to borrow a truck to move some furniture out of the farmhouse.
Convenient?
Well, we'll get to why, but basically, Glennie, matriarch of the family, puts her foot down and says, I'm not staying here anymore with 3 young children, and they're going to move her out. Now, Evansville was just over an hour's drive from Kelly. So the police continued their investigation, but still found no evidence of footprints. They also could not find the previous luminescent green stain in the yard. Additionally, they found no evidence to support any claims of the family being intoxicated. Unfortunately for the Suttons, the press that had been present the previous night wasted no time publishing the story, and word spread like wildfire about the alleged quote-unquote invasion. Over the following days, numerous reports, radio hosts, curious onlookers, and UFO enthusiasts descended upon the farmhouse. Now, as pieces of shit will do, some of these individuals were not only rude to the family, but also reportedly began coming into the home and stealing objects from inside and outside of the house.
No way. For real?
Yes. Now, their reasoning in taking these objects was due to it being an actual site of a UFO encounter. It don't matter. It's somebody's house.
Right.
Now, some of these pieces of shit were rude because they believed the family had fabricated the whole thing to gain attention and possibly make money from it. The Suttons and those present that night had nothing to gain by fabricating the story. In fact, those present that evening would ultimately regret coming forward and were left heavily traumatized by both the events and the backlash they faced from said event. At that time, the only direct involvement of the family in any form of publicity was a photo of Billy Ray and Lucky Sutton posing with their firearms, attempting to reenact the shootout for the Kentucky New Era newspaper. Now, the exact time and dates of specific events following that fateful encounter are difficult to find, but at some point, a man named Andrew Bud Ledwith, who was a host for the radio station WHOP in Hopkinsville, arrived at the farmhouse. Now, Bud was also a major UFO enthusiast. He was not rude or off-putting, but rather he displayed kindness and empathy towards the family. Bud was genuinely curious about the encounter and conducted interviews with nearly all of the members of the house, questioning them about what they had experienced. The only people he didn't question were the younger children that were hiding under the beds during the whole fiasco. Now, Bud was a skilled artist and very proficient in drawing and sketching what he was told while conducting his interviews. With Billy Ray regarding the supposed craft he had witnessed, Bud produced a sketch that closely matched Billy Ray's description. Likewise, when it came to the creatures that had attempted to lay siege to the house that night, the descriptions provided by almost every member of the farmhouse were consistent, and Bud created a sketch of those creatures as well. Regarding
They're
the
terrifying, by the way.
If you
They are.
if you type in Hopkinsville Goblins, it is, he's right. And somebody has colorized it, and I'm sure somebody's probably put it into AI now and makes it even worse.
Dude, what is the deal with like the babies?
I don't know, but I'm all for the Bigfoot and the Yeti, though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm here for it.
So,
and I was telling my fiance, I was just like, ever since that came out, like anyone that's listened to the podcast has pretty much sent me Bigfoot and Yeti.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not mad at it.
Regarding these creatures, the media had begun referring to them simply as the men, but a headline in the Indianapolis Star referred to them as little green men, despite the family's description of the creatures having silver, almost metallic-looking skin or clothing on. And the name Little Green Men stuck. Sadly, the majority of the people the family interacted with regard to the encounter were not as understanding and eager as Bud. These people continued to harass them. Within just 10 days from that evening's fiasco, their lives were upended. As I stated earlier, Glennie no longer felt safe living at the farmhouse with her children. One reason was she did not know if the creatures would return. The other was the relentless harassment and hateful accusations that continued to come her way by people showing up at her house. And here's the deal. In 1955, you would have been justified just shooting their ass for trespassing.
Listen, didn't you just say that she was trying to talk them into not shooting them because they didn't mean anybody any harm? Yeah. But now all of a sudden she's scared?
Well, being scared of said creatures, just, I don't know. I don't know how you would, I didn't interpret that way. I interpreted it as she didn't want them to shoot them, and she felt like shooting them kind of antagonized them. But at the same time, after all that goes down, now she's afraid that if it's just her and the 3 small children there, she can't defend the house like the men could have.
Gotcha.
So on that 10th day, Glennie made the decision to move out of the farmhouse forever and into an apartment in Hopkinsville. Her hope was that by leaving the property, she would find safety not only from the creatures, but also from the individuals who were big old pieces of shit that had ruined her house. And Billy Ray and Lucky, along with their wives and the other adults, had to return to their respective homes and jobs. And it was consensus that they were trying to put this behind them and just go on with their lives. Now, unlike those directly involved, the towns of Kelly and Hopkinsville chose to disregard and dismiss the entire ordeal, attributing it to nothing more than a figment of the imagination of a group of rural folks who were perhaps influenced by the consumption of Kentucky's white lightning. Now, the events of that night gradually faded into obscurity and perhaps would have been lost to history if it was not for one woman, and that woman was Isabel Davis. Now, she was an UFO investigator from New York City.
Get a rope.
And she arrived in Hopkinsville in June of 1956, approximately 10 months after the encounter had taken place. Isabel learned that three witnesses from the ordeal were still residing in Hopkinsville. Those were J.C. Sutton and his wife Eileen and Miss Glennie. Now, Isabel felt excited, believing that she had struck gold and would finally uncover the truth of what had happened that night. However, according to her, all three individuals had become, quote, embittered and resentful due to the negativity and ridicule they had faced because of the story, end quote. As a result, they were not very enthusiastic about speaking to her about the incident since she intended to publish an article about it. Reluctantly, however, Glennie did eventually agree to share some details of the events of that night with Isabel, although she did not disclose everything. After saying her goodbyes to Glennie, Isabel headed to the local police station in search of Russell Greenwell, who was the Hopkinsville chief of police that had been involved in the initial investigation. Greenwell was still serving as chief and proved to be extremely helpful to Isabel's investigation. He provided her with crucial information regarding the initial investigation and even arranged for her to be taken to the farmhouse where the encounter had actually taken place. When Isabel arrived at the farmhouse, she was greeted by a woman named Mrs. Juanita McCord. Juanita, along with her unnamed husband, were the current residents of the property. Isabel would later learn that Mrs. McCord's husband was actually a nephew of Miss Glennie Langford. So Mr. and Mrs. McCord were willing to share their view on the encounter with Isabel, even though they were not present the evening of the attack. Their comments were considered valuable because of their familial connection to Glennie, who was a key witness. It was also said that Glennie was tight-knit with her family, and it suggests that Glennie would have more than likely shared intimate details of the encounter with any of her relatives after that evening in question. Now, Isabel looked to also interview Andrew Bud Ledwith, who was the radio host who had produced the sketches based on the descriptions given by Billy Ray and everyone else there that night evening. She recognized his importance in capturing those sketches of the alleged craft and creatures, but also proved to be a valuable resource for her. Bud not only shared copies of the sketches, but also provided her with written notes from his own investigation and the interviews that he conducted with the family. Now, while these were all important witnesses, Isabel found that Ms. Glennie was the most significant witness. Often described as somber after the encounter, Glennie was deeply respected and loved by all of those who knew her. She was known for her honesty and sincerity and was not the type to engage in pranks or make up stories. Remember, she's living at the foot of the cross, forbids alcohol in her home. She's a salt of the earth woman. Now, her reputation for being a truthful woman made her accounts of the events that took place that night more compelling to Isabel. Before Isabel left Hopkinsville to return to New York City, she returned to Glennie's apartment to offer any apologies for any intrusion she may have caused in her investigation. Isabel would state that it was, quote, quite evident that Glennie Langford did not relish in revisiting the events that shattered her life, her family's life, and their reputations within their community, end quote. Isabel wanted to express her understanding and respect for the hardships Glennie had endured as a result of the encounter. Isabel's investigation played a crucial role in clarifying some of the misconceptions surrounding the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter. Her report helped dispel the false claims that the family had been drunk during the event. And remember, Chief Greenwell had already ruled out any evidence of alcohol consumption when he was on the scene. Additionally, Glennie's account corrected the exaggerated claims of seeing 12 to 15 creatures, clarifying that there were no more than 4 that were seen during the encounter and were fired upon. By presenting these accurate details, Isabel's investigation provided a more objective and reliable account of the events. Now, this helped set the record straight and challenge the exaggerated descriptions that had circulated in the media. Unfortunately, Isabel's report wouldn't become publicly available until 1973, which was 18 years after the events of the evening transpired. So when it comes to the paranormal and the field of ufology, fabrications, dramatizations, miscommunications, and smear campaigns are all, unfortunately, too common. Isabel's comprehensive report is available online, and it's also chronicled in her book, Close Encounters at Kelly and Others of 1955. Her report was published by the Center for UFO Studies, or CUFOS, which was founded and headed by one J. Allen Hynek, and yes, that's the same J. Allen Hynek that was involved in Project Blue Book. Now, it is important to note that while Project Blue Book had a case for the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter and Isabel's report was published via CUFOS, Mr. Hynek himself never conducted an official investigation of the case. Project Blue Book's investigation is rather anticlimactic and lacked an explanation. They simply classified the case as a hoax and provided no further elaboration. The aftermath of the Hopkinsville encounter had a profound impact on the Sutton family and those who were present that night. The relentless harassment and ridicule they faced took a toll on their mental and emotional well-being. J.C. Sutton in particular was deeply affected by the events and struggled to cope with the trauma from that night. He reportedly suffered from emotional distress for the remainder of his life and could not hold down a steady job. Basically, he got PTSD. Now, the long-lasting effects of such a terrifying experience and the subsequent negative reaction from others are the unfortunate consequences that the family had during their life. The Hopkinsville Goblins are a part of the state's paranormal history. Now, these goblins have had a significant influence on pop culture as well. Jesus, I can't talk. So in the late 1970s, one Steven Spielberg began working on a film project called Night Skies. And the film was intended to be based on the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter and was meant to follow Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I didn't either until I did this there research. Now, Spielberg has stated that both Close Encounters and the concept for Night Skies were imagined after Spielberg met Dr. Hynek, because remember, Dr. Hynek has a cameo in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Night Skies was eventually abandoned, but certain elements of the story were incorporated into the films of Poltergeist and E.T. In 1986, the comedy horror spoof movie Critters loosely drew inspiration from the Hopkinsville encounter. And in Critters, however, the creatures are depicted as violent and aggressive. In 2002, Pokemon and Nintendo released Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, marking the third generation of the Pokemon card in video games. This new generation introduced an additional 135 Pokemon to the roster. Interestingly enough, one of these new Pokemons named Sableye bears a striking resemblance to the Hopkinsville Goblins, minus the coloration.
Sableye?
Sableye.
That's dumb.
As the video game series later transitioned to 3D animation, Sableye can be seen with an awkward, swaying gait and walk that closely resembles the reported movements of the Goblins. While this may be a mere coincidence, one of the Pokemon cards features an illustration of it perched in a tree. It's kind of, I don't know, man. Man. It's kind of weird, man. It's kind of weird.
Well, here's the deal with this: is these are country folk. They're not going to misidentify these things. I know what you're saying. They're going to say it's a barn owl.
Oh yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to get way into that.
I mean, they're not dumb. They're simple country folk, but they're not stupid.
No, and that's what I was trying to kind of allude to. They're not going to go to the cops for raccoons, barn owls, or any of that stuff. But I digress. I'm getting ahead of. We're putting the cart before the horse, boy.
My fault.
In 2005, which marked...
I just wanted to talk.
In 2005, which marked the 50th anniversary of the encounter, the towns of Kelly and Hopkinsville commemorated the occasion with an invitation to Geraldine Stith, who was formerly known as Geraldine Sutton, to speak at the event. Geraldine was the daughter of one Lucky Sutton, who was born almost 14 years after the encounter took place. Lucky didn't disclose the details of the night to his children until a pair of UFO researchers and authors showed up at his doorsteps in 1969 asking questions about the event. When Geraldine attended the 50th anniversary ceremony of the encounter, she was stunned by the significant amount of misinformation being shared by the attendees. The inaccuracies were so prevalent that many didn't even have the correct names of the witnesses. Since then, Geraldine has been determined to reveal the actual truth of the story and put an end to the inaccuracies surrounding the ordeal her family experienced that night. Geraldine has gone to great lengths and published 2 separate books on the encounter herself. The first book was titled Alien Legacy, and it was published in 2005. The second book was titled The Kelly Greenman Alien Legacy Revisited, and it was published in 2015. Now, in 2010, when Kelly was struggling to generate ideas for a fundraiser event, they turned their intriguing history and chose to theme the event around the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter. The fundraiser was named the Little Green Men Days Festival and has evolved into an annual celebration in Kelly. Geraldine continues to be a regular speaker at the event, and she expresses her surprise that the countless individuals who approach her claiming to have had similar encounters and sightings as her father did in 1955. Furthermore, regarding the long-term impact of certain slander campaigns as well as judgment faced by the family, Geraldine still encounters individuals who continue to doubt and resent her father and all of those that were present that evening. Geraldine quickly corrects these people and mentions that some even disagree with Billy Ray and Lucky's aggressive response to the creatures. Well, here's the deal, Pickle. If you disagree, put your ass back in 1955 at a rural farmhouse in western Kentucky without running water, and this shit transpires, and you got readily available firearms. And
yeah, I'd light them up, man.
Yeah. Geraldine responds with, quote, "My dad was trying to protect them. They were country boys, and that's what they knew to do, get their guns. My family went through something whether it be paranormal or extraterrestrial, that changed their lives forever. I just want people to realize the terror they went through that night," end quote. So this August, in just a mere month or so, actually probably another 6 to 8, probably 7 weeks from the release of said episode, marks the 70th anniversary of the encounter with the alien invasion day set for August the 23rd. Hopkinsville also hosts Goblin Con on October 17th and 18th, which is close to my anniversary, and I have threatened to take the missus to Goblin Con.
I mean, you might as well, you boys up there.
I know. And it's right around his birthday. I get a double whammy. Man.
Call me, I'll go.
Tickets are only $10 in advance and $15 at the door.
Call me, I'll go.
We'll road trip. I ain't scared.
I ain't scared.
They also said that artificial sweeteners were safe and WMDs were in Iraq and Anna Nicole married for love.
You know that's the dude from the band, right?
Yeah, I saw something on, somebody did a little mini documentary on how much influence he had on the music genre.
Yeah, he was like the drummer / singer.
Yeah.
How weird is that? How often do you see that?
Not very. I mean, there is Don Henley, but he just had that Miami Vice cameo.
Right.
So some of the plausible non-paranormal explanations for both the craft witnessed by Billy Ray and the appearance of goblins themselves suggest that this was a case of misidentified natural phenomena combined with heightened fear and imagination. So let us begin with the UFO. So 1955 marked an important period in the interest of UFOs and sightings in the United States. The frequency of such reports was so high, it is more than likely that Billy Ray was well versed in the subject when he told the rest of his family what he had seen. He specifically mentioned having seen one of those flying saucers they've been talking about, which raises the possibility that maybe Billy Ray had just inadvertently convinced himself that he had seen a UFO when in fact he had seen nothing more than a shooting star. I doubt it, because he has that argument that lasts quite some time with everybody in the house basically saying that he had bumped his head. Now, it is worth noting that there was, in fact, a meteor shower that occurred in that region of Kentucky on that particular night, which was reported by multiple individuals, including military personnel at nearby Fort Campbell. Now, sidebar here, holy Lord at this high strangeness that goes on at Fort Campbell. Good night. Skinwalkers, Wendigos, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, you name it, Fort Campbell has it.
Really?
Yes, man. It is unreal. Like, we could do 3 or 4 episodes on the shit that goes down at Fort Campbell. And Fort Campbell is between Kelly and Land Between the Lakes. And Land Between the Lakes is where the Dogman or the Werewolves is at.
No, well, I'm not going.
That's
going.
That's a big old no.
I mean, Wendigos and Skinwalkers, no thanks.
I don't want none of that. So if
I want to see a Bigfoot at some point in my life from very far away.
Yeah, I want to be through like a spot and scope with old Russell Acord on Finding Bigfoot.
Right.
So if we look at the shooting star explanation, you have pros and cons for both. A pro is that we know there was a meteor shower taking place, and unfortunately there have been people who have reported UFOs that have misidentified meteors and shooting stars. Now, on the con side would be that Billy Ray's description of the craft slowly hovering above the house and appearing to land in a nearby field is clearly not something that a shooting star or a meteor would do. Also, according to Billy Ray's description, the craft had a trail of lights closely, quote-unquote, falling behind it and emitted a low hum-like noise.
I don't know, man. Like, the light behind it kind of makes me think it's a meteor.
Well, see, and that's what I thought, too. But the hum, I don't know. I mean, I've seen shooting stars, but if you had a small meteor come by, is it going to make a humming sound?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that much about meteors.
Well, being that he heard this hum, he had to be in very close proximity to said meteor or craft. Hypothetically, if this craft was one of them there meteors and the creatures are actual goblins, it would be an extraordinarily coinkydink that on the night there was a meteor shower, goblins decided to come out of the woods.
I don't think they're goblins, man. I think they're aliens, bro. That's just me.
I agree with you. Now, skeptics of the story have often point that the explanation for the whole thing is that Billy Ray, Glennie, Lucky, and everyone else in the farmhouse that night misidentified great horned owls as goblins, which is absolutely, unequivocally ludicrous.
I mean, I can identify a barn owl.
And that's what I don't understand.
A great horned owl.
Another explanation is given is that somehow Billy Ray disturbed a group of sandhill cranes that just so happened to follow him back to the farmhouse. Now, if we go back to the great horned owl, they've been known to reach the height of what these creatures were described as. However, and bear with me, this family, while they have been described as quote-unquote country folk, are not ignorant to what an owl is. They all grew up on farms and know the difference between an owl, a crane, a squirrel, as compared to what they described. Another explanation is that the owls attacked the family because they were quote-unquote protecting their nest, which is another load of shit. First of all, nesting season for these great horned owls is not in August. Nesting season is from January to February. So if you chase the nesting season hypothesis, they nest it from January to February with the eggs that are laid hatching around 4 weeks later. So on the backside, that puts you into March. The chicks reside in the nest for a maximum of 2 months. Now we're in late May. And another negative for the story is that it is assumed that there were 2 goblins, possibly up to 4. That would require that 2 or more owls be involved in the attack, which is extremely unlikely because these owls are very territorial in nature. And apart from nesting season, great horned owls are solitary and ferociously territorial, which means they run any other great horned owl out of their territory. I know that's crazy. So it is believed that a single great horned owl has a home range of approximately 1.5 miles. So if the Suttons had mistaken an owl for the goblin, it raises the question of how nearly every witness that night reported seeing 2 creatures simultaneously. We are bordering on odds that make me win the lottery a greater chance. Which I wish I would. God, it would solve a lot of problems.
They said that, money can't fix your problems. But I want new problems. I want money problems.
I want to trade these problems in for whatever they say I'm going to get. So these owls do share some physical similarities with the goblins outside their height. Everyone present that evening stated the goblins had a silver or metallic skin or clothing. I've never seen a great horned owl wear clothes or look metallic or silver. The face of the owls are... If you look one up, it's basically a little bit reddish in color, and they do have large yellow eyes, but their eyes do not have a glowing effect. This was one of the distinct descriptions when the Suttons were asked to describe the goblins. Now, Billy Ray and Lucky were both avid hunters who knew what an owl was, and they also were not crap shots. They hunted to provide food for their families. So how is it that 2 avid hunters not only misidentify owls, but also fail to kill them? Last time I checked, sweetheart, they wasn't bulletproof. I wish I had a sound file of him saying that.
I wish, call him up.
I need to
See
go.
if you'll,
I need to go see him and just record. Hey, Coach, you remember when you said, and get him to just tell the story again.
right.
Actually, I need him to tell the story about the crackhead that cut his boat tarp. We need to just do a Patreon. We need to do a Patreon exclusive, and we're not going to give out his name on Patreon, but we can tell some of the less than I don't know how you would describe some of the stories that we were told by him.
Well, like my fiance assumed that when we talked like that, we were just making fun of people
No.
from Alabama. And I said, no.
That's how he
We are
talks.
talking about one specific person who happens to live in Alabama.
And he was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, man. The stories we could tell.
If I get a shot at that owl that killed my cat, he'll be a dead ass. And then she goes, Coach, you can't shoot an owl. He never missed a beat. Well, sweetheart, last time I checked, they wasn't bulletproof. So, JC.
Oh, I'm going to take me a tar.
And about a half a gallon of diesel fuel.
That's right. I got a stump in my yard. And I'm going to take a tar. And I'm going to, yeah, and about a gallon of kerosene. And I'm going to set it on fire. And there's not a thing you or the
poo nannies at the EPA
can do about it.
And what's even funnier about that story is at no time have you ever, or did you ever say that you were in, like EPA was like one of your dream jobs?
Dude, like that was my last day at work.
Hi, Coach, come here.
They say, hey, Coach, what's happening? And then he'd cut a nasty fart. Oh, well, see you later.
Then he goes back to talking about history right next door.
Goes back to class.
So J.C. Sutton claimed to have struck the creatures as well. If the creatures were owls, not only would there be blood present at the scene, there would also have been a lot of them there feathers. It'll be like you shot a pillow. Now, another chink in the armor of this theory is the last time I checked, owls do not give off a metallic reverberation noise when struck by lead shot or a lead bullet. They also do not ooze a glowing green substance when shot. Proponents of this owl theory state that the glowing green substance was foxfire. Now, for those of you that don't know what foxfire is, and I was one of yous before I did my research, foxfire is a type of glowing fungus that grows on decaying wood. Now, the naysayers state that when the men were shooting at these owls, not only did they not hit them, they struck decaying wood that caused this glowing ooze to occur. Problem is that this ooze or this foxfire was only on the ground, according to the police investigation. And remember, when they came back the next day, it wasn't there no more. Now, foxfire's glow or luminescence only lasts for a few seconds. So by the time, and the reason I brought up them it was on the ground when the police conducted their investigation, that is almost, 6 hours from the time the shooting started that evening to when they noticed the ooze. And it would have been, was it an hour after or an hour or two that had transpired with them driving to the police station and then everybody getting back there. So that kind of throws out the whole foxfire thing. Also, they had flashlights that evening looking around the farmhouse. And from what I could determine when researching foxfire, as soon as any light hits it, natural or unnatural, it goes away.
What do you mean goes away?
It stops glowing. It's like when you was a kid and used to hit the fireflies. When you was a kid and used to hit them there fireflies with that plastic bat, sooner or later that glow goes away. Now, there was something that you said that jogged me old memory. Let's see if I can find it up here. What was it? I was going to do something. Oh, well.
Do it live.
I don't know. It
was about, oh boy.
No, it was, had something to do with the case. I can't remember exactly. I was going to come back to it, and of course, my pea brain can't handle that much time. This is not it, but going back to one of the theories was the cranes migrate, and they don't start coming down in August. Cranes are still in the Dakotas, I think, by then. They're getting ready to migrate, but they sure as shit ain't in Kentucky. I don't know. Now, going with the owl theory, what they're trying to say, what they're trying to propose is that you had nesting owls, which was way beyond nesting season. But you also had, if you catch them on that technicality, then they're going to say that there was just 2 owls in the vicinity. But owls, like I said, have a mile to a mile and a half territory. So they're trying to make everyone believe that not only do you have 2 owls working in collaboration to harass a family, but their territories overlap at the farmhouse. I just don't buy it. And Glennie was still there with her 3 young children. She would have known what a great horned owl was.
I mean, I know what a great horned owl is. So, of course they're going to know.
Well, last time I checked, they don't float above the ground and do somersaults when you shoot them.
Maybe they do.
I'm not going to find out. That's a whole bunch of fines. It's research. I got this podcast.
It ain't worth that.
No, it sure ain't. All right, so final thoughts. I, for one, believe. All right. Oh, I know what it was. Bingo. You said that you don't believe it was goblins. You believe it was aliens. So here's the thing. I do too until I watched Hellier. And then, like I said at the beginning of the episode, Heater had talked about people growing up in the area when he worked over there saying that they had seen goblins. Here's my theory on this whole thing. I think that it is aliens. I don't know. I can't explain the UFO, okay? Because if it was crashed, then that would have been found, and you would have heard rumors of the government swooping in and taking it away, which never happened. What I think happened was they may, by shooting some of these, let's just say for the sake of an argument, there was 6 creatures. And by shooting 4 of them, those 4 couldn't make it back to the craft, and the craft left with the other 2. Okay, so they just cut bait and left. And these 4 somehow made it into the caves around Hopkinsville and Kelly. And we know the cave system in Kentucky is massive. This would explain the goblin sightings that come up later in Hellier.
I don't know, man.
That's my final theory. It is a stretch, but hell, so is glowing green ooze and creatures with claw-like appendages.
Okay, that's fair. But
have you ever listened to our podcast before?
I think this is pretty credible, honestly.
Well, they didn't have anything to gain from it.
Right. They didn't benefit financially.
No, their lives were turned upside down.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Gary Subbrink is he never told a soul. He never profited from it. at all.
No.
He talked to us, and he talked to that one lady, and that's it, which is crazy to think about.
It is. It's crazy. Hey, did you know so when this drops, it'll drop on the 9th. This will be the last episode of season 6.
Really?
Yeah, we'll be starting season 7.
You don't just consider the season over?
I just go by the date that we started it.
Well, January 1st?
No,
you're based on
when we started the podcast.
Gotcha.
Well, and the other thing is we're closing in on episode 300.
We got to figure something out for that.
I know. I've got a couple ideas I'll tell you.
We should reach out to Bill Roush again.
Yeah, fucker.
See if he'll actually fucking talk to us.
We'll just have Boo Colts and her husband come on and talk about their trip to Croatia. He took her to the Eastern Bloc for her 50th birthday. And she has posted no less than 1 million photos, and it's beautiful over there. I want to go.
To Croatia?
The whole Eastern Bloc's where they were at. Man, you should look at her Facebook posts. It is the pictures on her Facebook from where everything they've gone, everywhere they've gone. It's beautiful, man. But anyway, final, you got anything else you want to talk about with this case before we get into recommendations? I think it's aliens.
I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's pretty credible. I just don't see them misidentifying an owl.
I don't either.
I just don't see it.
It's ludicrous.
Wouldn't it who? Who?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. It should have hooted.
Yeah, you'd have thought.
It would have screeched at the least if you shot it. And it would have screeched if it was trying to protect its nest. You can just blow holes in both those theories so fast. But anyway, so this is shameless plug for Kelly in Hopkinsville. Like I said, this is the 70th anniversary. This year is the 70th anniversary. So on August the 23rd, it's called Alien Invasion Day. And it is from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. They've got food trucks, games, and it's on East 9th Street in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. They had to, during COVID, I think they missed a couple of years, but it's back full chalant. It will be at the Visitor Center. Some of the pictures that they have of this, if you go to Visit Hopkinsville Facebook page, I mean, it looks like it's a good time, man. Looks like it's one of them good times. This year's featured speakers for Goblin Con, dang it, it's going to make me log in. Hold on. Hold, please. See if I can blow this thing.
Goblin Con?
Yeah, that's the one that's in October. Come on. All right, so we got Bryce Johnson from Expedition Bigfoot's going to be there. You got Miss Geraldine Sutton Smith, who is the daughter of Lucky. She's going to be there. Tyler Strand from Hellier and I have no idea. I cannot read that last part. Cryptozoologist Ken Gerhard will be there. David Eller is also another Bigfoot field researcher and cryptozoologist. He'll be there. Pat Fitzga. He is a researcher and author of a Bell Witch book. He'll be there. You got Sin Strader Hill, Tim Swartz, the Schwartz. Speaking of which, Spaceballs 2 is coming out.
Dude, I know. I'm so happy. Rick Moranis is actually coming back.
I know.
He's only been in like 2 movies since like Little Giants.
Is it Bill Pullman's son's going to, I think, come in too?
Really?
Yeah. So the last 4 people that are going to be there that are scheduled are Tom Reed, Miranda Young, Ron Murphy, and Dr. Christy Sumner. She is the founder of Soul Sisters Paranormal. It would be a good time, I think, if you could spend both days there. Just hear people's stories and stuff, man. They actually, tickets, if you're interested for Goblin Con 2025, they go on sale August 1st. So, like I said, $10 in advance or $15 at the door.
If it wasn't so dang far away, I'd go.
You can hitchhike, man. Nothing will happen.
They gonna kidnap me, brother.
Just remember, ladies and gents, if you ever hear one of us being kidnapped, just know we did not go quietly. We screamed like girls.
Oh, yeah, man. I scream like a girl anyway. I hate it.
So I told you and everyone else that I was trying to give myself fishing elbow. Well, I almost stepped on a damn snake about 2 weeks ago.
Dude, I stepped on a bee.
Barefoot?
Barefoot.
Oh. How'd that work out for you?
Stung me right on the heel.
Well, that's better than the arch, my boy.
Yeah, that's true.
Your glass has to be half full, son. God. All right. You got any recommendations?
I'm going to recommend the Lost Children. I watched the preview, the trailer. Holy shit.
I'm going to watch it probably this evening or tomorrow.
Yeah, I plan on, as soon as we get off here, I'm going to watch it. That story was wild.
Yeah, it is. If you don't know, it's on Netflix. Isn't it on Netflix?
It is. It is
okay,
indeed.
Yeah. So the Lost Children documentary on Netflix. Check her out. Coach, you got it?
Watch the preview, and you're definitely gonna watch. You'll definitely watch it. If you watch the preview, you will watch it.
100%.
100.
All right, boys and girls. My recommendation is buy you tickets for Goblin Con.
Oh yeah.
I did say that. You got anything else there, Slapnut?
Oh, you know I don't.
Deuces.